I'm very happy to welcome all of you at this conference. This is yet another annual conference entitled Cleaner Agriculture for More Sustainable Baltic Sea. And after these words, I want to give the floor to Evgeny Labanov, who represents the Eco-Idea organization in Belarus. They are our reliable partner in this country, and they are one of the co-organizers of this conference. Good morning, colleagues in Minsk. Good morning, colleagues located in different countries, in particular in Ukraine and in Sweden. We decided to take advantage of this great opportunity to talk about green agriculture for sustainable environment and also draw the conclusions of the eco-friendly farmer competition in Ukraine, in Belarus. This is a competition that has been taking place in our countries for several years now. In Belarus, the Eco-Idea organization is a partner within the conduct of this competition. In Ukraine, we have our counterparts in person of Ecoterra, and we are very grateful to them for their cooperation and collaboration. I believe that all the participants of this conference share our avid interest in reducing the impact of agriculture on the environment. For us, within the Eco-Idea organization, it's an important focus area. This is something that we have been working on for a long time, and we are determined to continue doing so. We want to support farmers and small initiatives that contribute to green agriculture. It's one of the key sectors that we need to receive livelihoods, but at the same time, we want this sector to be environmentally friendly. Farmer of the Year tool or award is one of the most stimulating means of exploring the current state of play, because within this competition, we can find out more about global trends, about those approaches that you are integrating. This year, I would like to emphasize that apart from the traditional Baltic Sea region, we started some endeavors in the Black Sea region, because in Belarus, there's a connection there, and we can observe some very interesting environmental practices. Taking into account the recent developments and taking into account the applications that we receive within the competition, we can see that this topic is gaining in popularity and interest among all the representatives of the agricultural sector. We are looking forward to hearing more about the recent development and practices in Ukraine. So I really hope that today we will have a very interesting exchange of opinions and experiences on the part of farmers, on the part of agricultural producers. We will have a number of interesting presentations and speeches that will help us broaden our outlook and have a better understanding of individual aspects that have an impact on the environment in agriculture in the Baltic Sea region, in the Black Sea region. And we also want to briefly talk about how we can improve the Farmer of the Year competition. Maybe there are certain steps and moves that we can make to make it even more effective. So I really hope for heavily engaged discussion. Thank you for having joined us offline or online. And once again, I really hope that we will enjoy our discussion. Misha, back to you. Thank you, Zhenya. Once again, good morning, everyone. Actually, we are over 40 people online. I'm very pleased about it. I'm very delighted that we have so many colleagues join from many countries, not only from Belarus, Ukraine, Russia, but we also have some colleagues from Denmark, Sweden. Without further ado, I want to pass the baton to Natalia Cholovska from the Ecoterra organization. They are our partner in Ukraine, in particular in Lviv.
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to welcome all the participants of today's event. And it's great that we have a possibility to communicate all of us together. I'm really happy that we have this international seminar where we have farmers from Belarus, farmers from Ukraine, and we also have representatives of educational institutions and non-governmental organizations, as well as other partners and colleagues from the European Union. We are really grateful for this opportunity that we have received to hold this award, which is unique. I will go back to that later. Later, we are going to have a presentation. And right now, I would like to wish a nice beginning of the event, to have a fruitful day. And now I want to give the floor to Lubomir Klepat, who represents the Belarus organization, and he is going to tell us about the award of this year, the Baltic Sea Farmer of the Year award, about the selection of farmers in Belarus. We are really interested to learn more about that.
Thank you, Natalia. Good morning once again. If you have just joined, a reminder for everyone, we have simultaneous interpretation on Zoom. So if you are connected via Zoom, you can find a globe symbol at the bottom of the Zoom screen, click on it and pick the relevant channel, English, Russian, or Ukrainian. And if you tap into one of the channels, you will be able to hear simultaneous interpretation if you need that, of course. So thank you very much indeed. Lubomir, the floor is yours. Good morning. Good morning, colleagues present in the room here. Good morning to our colleagues from Sweden, Denmark, and Germany. I'm not really sure whether we have anyone from Germany and Ukraine as well. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude for this great opportunity to participate in this conference, the conference entitled Greener Agriculture for a Sustainable Sea. In parallel, we are having an awarding ceremony. This ceremony will be taking place offline in the city of Minsk. It's a pleasure of mine to welcome all the winners among the Ukrainian and Belarusian farmers. These are the farmers who became the 2021 award holders. They are the holders of very valuable awards. It's not really about recognizing their profitability. It's not really about recognizing their economic performance. This award is more about acknowledging a different set of values. And I believe that those farmers that do something and contribute to environmental preservation are a great asset because they can propagate these practices and their expertise among other farmers as well. And I believe that the eco-friendly farmer of the Baltic region competition is a great tool and avenue that we can use to this end. Can I have my presentation on the screen, please? I would like to briefly tell you about how it went in Belarus. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit struggling with the microphone. Belarus and Ukraine are the last two countries of the Baltic region that sent their waters to the sea, and we joined in 2018 at the initiative of the coalition Clean Baltic, then invited us to join this competition, and we were happy to do so. And I can already see the positive effect of this competition. To the best of our capacity, we disseminate the relevant information. We encourage our farmers and researchers to engage in the competition and contribute to this endeavor. On behalf of everyone, I would like to say something, and then you will hear more from my colleague in Lviv, Natalia. She will walk us through the competition in Ukraine. So let me brief you on the goals and objectives of the competition. First and foremost, we want to promote good practices of eco-friendly agriculture in the Baltic region. And this competition is also our way of saying thank you and acknowledging those agricultural producers and farmers that take measures to preserve the Baltic Sea environment, the basin environment. And as of 2021, they started doing that in the Black Sea region as well. A couple of words about the partners of the competition. Worldwide Wildlife Fund, Coalition Clean Baltic, Center for Environmental Solutions. They're also one of the organizers of this competition, Eco Idea organization. And right now, we are promoting this idea among some other stakeholders. Yet another partner of the competition is the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environmental Protection of the Republic of Belarus. Criteria of the competition, I will not expand on that. All the winners know how we evaluated. The jury members are present here as well, so most of you are well versed in the criteria that we utilized to pick the winners. And believe me, it was a tall order. Every year, it was a tough task for us to select the winners because they all contribute their own added value. But I would like to draw your attention to some of the environmental criteria, like awareness raising or outreach activities in the area of environmental protection and preservation. This is something that farmers contribute to as well because they organize workshops, tours, excursions, and all these efforts facilitate eco-friendly practices. Jury members, we had some highly distinguished colleagues, and they represent all the sectors that are relevant for agriculture and for the assessment of agricultural producers. So within the jury, we had representatives of the production sector, we had agricultural practitioners. Of course, our jury members rotate on a regular basis. We also engaged experts on the sustainable development of rural territories and one representative of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environmental Protection. So we included the perspective of the government, the perspective of the producers. They had to evaluate the impact and the importance of the relevant practices. And we also wanted to understand to what extent different practices were sustainable from an economic perspective. On this slide, you can see the sponsors of our competition. I want to take advantage of this opportunity and express my sincere gratitude to all the sponsors of this competition. Thank you for your unwavering support of our farmers. This is motivation of our farmers. Most of them are small farming households, and of course, they appreciate and value any support of this kind. The first company that joined our competition was Argentum Group. I asked Tatiana whether they wanted to give a prize to the first place or second place, but Argentum means silver. So of course they picked the second prize holder. Then the next sponsor is AgroLife company. A representative of this company is present here. Fitera company represented here as well. Удобрение Plus. It's a company that offers some very interesting fertilizers, and they also offer fertilizers produced of corn and hoof straw shavings. and Bel Universal Product Company. They joined this competition this year, and they produce very interesting fertilizers. They use pine trees and conifers or something of this kind. I'm not really 100% positive. And now to the essence of my presentation, I would like to expand on how this competition evolved in Belarus. We worked in the Baltic Sea region. We received 12 applications in the first year. And even back in the first year, we realized that the jury members were struggling to identify the winners because we had small farmers. They do a lot of good things, but of course, it's difficult for small farmers to compete with large ones because their leverage is smaller. Chichira was a winner in the first year, 4 hectares of land. 2019, 2020, we had larger farming households, 260, 280 hectares. So these are farming households Zdorova Strana, Healthy Country, and Fortuna Agra from different parts of our country. And in the subsequent years, 2019, 2020, there was a greater need for understanding how to evaluate these small farmers. And that's why we decided to engage sponsors because we didn't really want just one winner to receive the support.
In 2021, we actually introduced this ranking. First of all, we distinguished between the Baltic region and the Black Sea region, the two awards. In the Baltic Sea region, well, we have elaborated this in detail. The applications were submitted very actively from this region, and we were able to divide the farmsteads up to 5 hectares and over 5 hectares. This year we have the winners in the categories under 5 hectares and above 5 hectares. But this is one of our pains that we have always felt when we had to choose the winner, and we've eventually managed to solve it, and we are able to choose the winners. This year, we also opened the call for the Black Sea region, and we have the winner from the Black Sea region today. And we also have certain jury farms, and we are supporting them with certain sponsorship for the winners who hit the first place. So these are our winners who I mentioned already: Chichira, Zdorova Strana, and Fortuna Agro from 2018, 2019, and 2020. The duck farm company in Dzержинski district that is the farm from the Baltic Sea region over 5 hectares, and Важная птица, they are growing the quails, and also from Berezino district, Lutaeva farm, the winner in the Black Sea region. What are our plans for the future? Well, I believe this is the topic for today's discussion. We are open to listen to your proposals, suggestions, and ideas. We are open to listen to your vision. We will do our best to take into account all of your suggestions as far as it is possible. But what we know for sure and what we can see already, that in the Black Sea region, we also need to split into the small farm and bigger farm, like under 5 hectare farm and above 5 hectare farm. And it's important to have this distinction to highlight the eco-friendly farms who are doing their best to have the sustainable farming in their operations. I finished my presentation. Thank you for attention, and I really would like to encourage our sponsors and our farmers to join the discussion about our competition. And now I would like to pass the floor to Natalia Cholovska, who will tell us more about the competition and how it functioned and worked out in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you, Lubomir. Natalia, the floor is yours.
We got acquainted with the unique competition back in 2015 in the city of Stralsund. This is a wonderful town located on the coast of the Baltic Sea, where the award-giving ceremony for the Baltic farmer took place. And this was the first time I was there. We had participants there, the members of Clean Baltic Coalition, and we were also in there. And this is where we first conceived this idea. Back then, it didn't seem viable, but we thought that we should somehow become a part of it. And I was there together with Mihailo Durkin, and I said it out loud. I said, wow, what a wonderful competition. I wish Ukraine could join it one day. And actually, in the picture, you can see the location where the awards ceremony took place. This is a unique oceanarium, and this is where the ceremony took place. And it was such a surprise. I was in awe the entire time, but of course things had to go right for this to happen. So what I would like to share with you, the initial history behind this, that this award, the Baltic Sea Farmer, was first initiated in 2009. So in 2015, it was far from being the first ceremony. And the aim behind it was to inspire farmers and the decision makers in the region in order to act to preserve and to save the Baltic Sea. But Ukraine also has something to do with the Baltic Sea. We have two rivers, San and Western Bug. Western Bug is actually, it comes from our region, Lviv region, between the two villages. And these two villages, they tap into the water of this river. They use it for their own needs, and this water is unique in terms of its purity. So in 2018, Clean Baltic Coalition, owing to them, we had an opportunity to partake in this unique competition. So the suggestion was, let's do national hubs. We do it locally, Belarus does it locally, so we could give it a shot and hold this competition. So over the years, Ukraine has had 4 national winners, but I would like to say, and I would like to share a great piece of news, that this year we also had a nominee for the international competition, one enterprise that was a winner last year, so that this enterprise could run for the award of the Baltic Sea Farmer. So let's see who were the contenders over the past years. So here you can see our winners. In 2018, the winner was Bogdan Kostev Enterprise. I think the Agrarian University will recognize their student, a successful farmer who has chosen a difficult path for organic farming, who produces niche crops. Some of these cultures were long forgotten in Ukraine. Some of them are brand new, just becoming trending over the past years. So these are specific kinds of wheat. Well, buckwheat, I guess, is not a surprise, but also other cultures like amaranth. And Bohdan was the one who initiated the production of different niche cultures or niche crops. And when we visited Bohdan back then, we saw that on his list there are over 20 kinds of crops like that. So he was our first national winner in 2018. Next was a non-organic farming enterprise. And here I would like to stress that, dear producers, dear farmers, this is a unique opportunity for organic farms, but also for conventional farms that take any kind of environmentally friendly measures in order to protect the environment, to protect the water. So conventional enterprises are free to participate as well. And we had a winner of this kind. This was a family farm belonging to Oreshchin. They breed cattle, Volyn red breed of cattle. So they graze for 11 months until the first snowfall, and then they can leave their shelters early as well. So when I first visited their enterprise, I was awestruck by the beauty, by the beautiful grazing fields, gorgeous animals. But what is more important is that it's a very professional enterprise that has respective treatment of soil, protection of soil, introduction of fertilizers of natural origins. And in 2019, they were the winners. Next, in 2020, our winner was a big enterprise located in Volyn. And as I said, the basin of Western Bug, one of the main rivers that carries its waters to the Baltic Sea, it's not only about the Lviv region, but about Volyn region as well. And this is where our next enterprise is based. It's called Stary Poretsk, Old Poretsk. You can see the leader in the picture, and this is him in his enterprise. I hope he can join us today and tell us a little bit more about his enterprise. It's a unique enterprise that is located next to an entire cascade of lakes. All of them belong to the Baltic Sea basin. It's a large enterprise by the measure of either organic or conventional farming. It's over 900 hectares. They have a big milk herd. They do processing. They have a social component, whereas there is a village nearby and 50 people out of the village are employed by the enterprise. But it's also unique in the respect that it has initiated the processing of the waste of the husbandry processes. And we will have a representative of a very interesting company today that will tell us more about the technology to be used. And this year's winner, cooperative Like a Bee, Oleg Bachinsky, I think he will join us today as well. And he will tell us more about his enterprise, Berry Cooperative, a unique enterprise in the respect that it takes care of their clientele. They deliver the fresh produce to their clients. They also have a wonderful educational component that they are running, and we believe it's very promising in terms of elaborating educational trips, field trips for children to visit the enterprise. Some have happened already, but they plan to invest into it in the future. So thank you for your attention. And I would just like to mention at the end that we have the honor of also having the judges of our competition present today, the three wonderful bodies, representatives of an NGO in ecology, law, humans, a wonderful organization with wonderful experts in the field of environmental law. We also have the representatives of an NGO called Bureau of Environmental Investigations, also a very interesting organization. And another expert on our panel is a representative of the State Consumer Service. So we try to involve as many well-versed, well-experienced experts that would be able to draw a verdict on our competitors. And I would like to say thank you to Clean Baltic Coalition that helped our dreams come true. We hope for this competition to prosper. We hope for our farmers to put and more effort into taking the decisions and adopting the solutions that are not only economically viable, but also environmentally friendly. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Natalia, and thank you for reminding us that the idea of bringing the competition to Ukraine and Belarus was born in 2015 when we met at this conference at Strasbourg. And I'm really happy to see each of you and be able also to stay on site in the conference center in Minsk that hosted the similar conference for the eco-friendly agriculture for the Baltic Sea region in 2016. It was the first conference that the Coalition Clean Baltic was holding, and also the award ceremony was held. Now, since in our room, in conference room, online and on site, we have very many farmers and the representatives of the academia and from various educational institutions and establishments. There are many people who are promoting various eco-friendly technologies in agriculture and farming. We therefore would like to offer to you two lectures, and we will start with a lecture about composting, and Sergei Prokopenko will tell us more about this, and it will be about the profitable or subsidized composting. What is best? And now I will pass the floor to Sergei. Also, please be reminded that you can use the interpretation function.
Rotational composting, it exists, but I don't want to focus on it because I would rather focus on profit-making composting. That is composting of organic waste of husbandry and poultry farming. So the main waste that we look into is basically whatever is relevant to our competition. We were able to analyze what kind of waste we should refer to. Please, next slide. So why composting? Why it's about composting and why it's about aerobic composting. So here are some of the most important factors from the viewpoint of processing. It's a simple technology that consists in the fact that your raw materials, you take your materials, you have your specific recipes, depending on your waste in your enterprise, you only add oxygen, you control the moisture, and you receive the produce. It's not very difficult when you have specific equipment. It's economically viable and economically profitable. And this year, I would like to share with you our experience from the viewpoint of our clients in Ukraine. We have more and more of such clients every year. This year, by the end of the year, because of the increase in the price of fertilizers, we saw a great surge in terms of demand. We had almost 170% in comparison to what was planned. So this shows us that the market has been shaped, it's being formed, but everybody wants to save money. But unfortunately, we only move towards these decisions because of economic figures only. And today we see that these economic figures we were able to see in some regions earlier, in some a bit later, but more and more people switch to deep processing of organic waste in order to increase the effectiveness of usage of their own waste in order to produce them into fertilizers, which makes it not a waste anymore, and which brings the enterprises to cost reduction practices. So please, let's move to the next slide. So what can composting solve for you? Not only the things that are on the slide, but here are the main indicators, and please mind that all of them have to do with economic indicators, no matter what our farmers or competition participants tell us. I rely on my own experience. So people move on to use composting by 99% when they see the economic benefits. Here you can see the main kinds that can be exemplified through economic indicators. For instance, paying penalties. As you know, starting 2015, we are all supposed to compost our waste, preserve it in concrete platforms in Ukraine. So legislation is in place. But in reality, around 5% of producers of waste only do it, only comply with these requirements, because it's simpler for them to pay the fines. Also, the expenses, transportation and logistics expenses, the volume of the raw material decreases by 20 to 70%. So this is the total level of decrease, and owing to this, you need less transport in order to assure logistics and raw materials. Expenditures on mineral fertilizers. In the process of composting, minerals are retained and they become accessible to plants, and the accessibility level is higher than in the regular waste. And this leads you to the fact that you can reduce the expenses on mineral fertilizers. If you don't use mineral fertilizers, you just use the organic. We also have such clients. Usually, owing to composting, they can increase, they can boost the level of effectiveness of their waste, also with the aim of higher cost effectiveness or boosting crop yields. Also, reduction of expenses for crop yields. Compost is a liquid product, which means that it's a goods, the kind of goods that is sold on the market. For instance, this year we have received some calls to sell compost. We're not sellers. We do the processing of one raw material into a different raw material, and we get offers like sell the compost to us. And this year, the price of compost with the active ingredient, the one based on cattle manure, the price was 1.3 thousand with VAT, and with the chicken droppings compost, the price was 2,000 hryvnias respectively. So these were the offers that we received. The people were ready to buy at this price. So we don't do this, but this is the offer that exists in the market.
Then we can also talk about the cost reduction when we use spreaders, because we use spreaders to increase effectiveness. And we know that when we have some new equipment, usually this is something that comes from abroad, because there's post-Soviet equipment, we are not considering them. But when we talk about these new spreaders, then we know that we can see this reduction. We hear it from our clients, especially when we talk about maintenance and repair services. And we can see the reduction up to 90%, just because these raw materials, they some 8%, or depending on the quality, or 10% aerations. Then as a result, this agent, it absorbs, it takes away all of that, different threads, branches, stones, everything, because you understand that here manure is not really considered to be high quality resource. And some people think that it is just waste, residue. That is why they throw everything. That is why it's important for composting process to make sure that everything is cleared. And when we talk about soil and macro elements, we know that theoretical, or probably some people will disagree with me, because whether it does not come there with manure or bird manure, yes, it does. But we have two different components here. Here we talk about accessibility of CO, and we also call it between ourselves in the following way, whether something what you add today will be there in 5 years, because when you do composting, it will be there. But when we talk about manure or uh, bird manure, then we know that it's not going to stay there. I think up to 70% will be reduced by water. That is why it's important to have it. Please, next slide. And here we can see the examples. These are some real cases from the Ukrainian market. And here you can see this economic viability. What are the conclusions, the takeaways? And I will briefly share the results, provide some examples, because here we have some bigger farm. And unfortunately, when we talk about such bigger farms, we can see these economic differences, because it is one of the examples. Here you can see 10,000 hectares for yields, and we have 58,000 manure from large livestock. And when we talk about the introduction of composting, and for year, we can see the result is 8,452,000 hryvnias. That is a rough estimate. And here we can talk about the cost reduction on maintenance of spreaders, as I mentioned. Then we also have the results for experimental crops, when we have the increase of yields or decrease in production, in cost. Then also we talk about financial results. Well, as the practice shows that some 5 years ago, during the first year, if you're lucky, then we can see this cost effectiveness of composting. That was 5 years ago, but in 2020, 2022, then we can see that we had similar experimental plots, and eventually in 75% of our clients, the effectiveness from composting could be seen during the first year already. That was something that we didn't see previously. This cost effectiveness, I returned, but well, if I'm not mistaken, it was like 7-8%. So usually we talked about losses when people transitioned to composting, or then they had somehow to compensate for their losses. But during these years, we see an absolutely different picture. And our studies, they show that most likely in those 5 years, our soils changed so much in a negative way that we can see these different results as compared to the past, because these land plots, they were very similar to those that we used before. Yes, we know that there are many of them, but generally this percentage increased by 10%, by 10 times, and we understand that this composting is a positive trend, but it's not because of the fact that composting is a solution, a universal solution. But unfortunately, it's because we cannot use the resource that we have on our hands. We don't know how to use it wisely. And on the whole, taking this case, you know that you can see it here that we can save costs for mineral fertilizers by changing the system of feeding of plants. This is one of the cases, and there's another case, another. Could you please show the next slide?
Сільськогосподарські підприємства це птахівництво.
And this is another, it is a poultry farm. It is a part of the Baltic region as well, which impacts water resources of the area. And here we can also see the results when the farm buys chicken manure and then transports it for the distance of 300 kilometers. And here they did not have a chance to have these composting fields. That is why it was possible for them to reduce costs. And I think it was up to 50% when I talk about general expenses, because we had this change of raw materials, and we know that the volume has changed because of that. So it also led to this reduction. And the next slide, please.
Так. І остання це також приклад по
And the last one, it is also a poultry farm. And here we can see the effectiveness, because the farm was trying to become more economically viable, because we had the increase in energy supply prices during the winter period. That is why it was not possible for them to be cost effective as they initially planned. That is why they try to find some additional ways of making profit. That is why they decided to replace to change the system, and partially they introduced the composting. They added to the price of the product, and actually it turned out well for them. That is why it was some additional value which can be created in addition to your raw materials. That was the third case. And the next slide, please. And here, when we talk about some stages, how can we use the potential of raw materials to the full? Here you can see it is, you have this information here, and that I want to go into detail. Do not trust the sellers of equipment and the calculation theories and theoretical calculations, because right now we're in that market of people who really know how to sell. This is what makes us different from our Western partners. We do know how to do that, but what we sell does not always work effectively. That is why you really need to be skeptical when you consider those calculations, theoretical calculations that you receive from the sellers for equipment. Then it's important to order and to buy demonstrations, to have experiments and to make calculations, because we see it from our experience. And there are also some companies which provide equipment, and we know that there are no people who are ready to pay 100, 200, 300,000 for equipment just like that, because despite the fact that these are household names, because well, people don't really understand what composting is. That is why they started inviting us for certain events where they have demonstrations, and we have some periods of time. It covers 45, 60 days. These are production demonstrations for our clients to have this experience, hands-on experience of receiving and composting, of using that on site, and actually to provide an answer to themselves whether they need it or they don't. And we believe that it is the best solution for our clients, because for our clients, it's important to know that they use their money wisely. That is why it's important also to order, to buy demos, to show how it works practically. This is something that can be done on the basis that you already saw during the demonstrations, because even if you have this equipment, it does not really mean that your staff knows how to make compost. That is a very important objective. Again, from our experience, we know that those people who purchased equipment, some 50%, they return to servicing. This is the statistics that we have. Then it's very important to to expect a lot from the processing department, because sometimes people say that, weather conditions are not good enough. It is live organism. It always requires at some point, and it really shows you, as a kid can tell you that it requires some diversity or oxygen in our case, or moisture. So it shows it all to you. And it's like you talk with your kid, you don't eat today, you can eat tomorrow, because you know what's going to happen. The kid will never like that and will become whimsical. So it works in the same way. Here it is a live organism. It's very important that it grows. Then you also need to test the marketing system. And here we also talk about the use of this product at your production facilities. uh, when we talk about the replacement, when we talk about the mineral fertilizers, because you purchase your own products on the one hand, this is what you can do. Or another way to test it is you can use neighbors for you to understand the liquidity aspect of your products. And as the practice shows that in some regions, from one and the same kind of raw materials, you can receive products which cost twice as much. And this is a well-known fact in Ukraine. And it's very important to take smart solutions, uh, to consider facts only, not theories. The next slide, please. And here you can see this total effect from the use of a systematic use of composting, how it impacts agronomic features and properties of the soil. Here you can see that it shows an economic value, but it's important to understand that here we are talking about economic and environmental indicators. We know that this is the moment when these environmental aspects, they are becoming more and more profitable, and it impacts from the economic perspective your farms. And here you can consider all of these aspects, all of these factors, but each of these factors, they are also part of the environmental component. And when you start composting from economic parts, components, you move to environmental issues. So they go hand in hand. The next slide, please. That is everything about my presentation, but I would also like to add some information from my own study. I also managed to learn more about key objectives of the Coalition Clean Baltic, and I really wanted to run the parallels with composting by CCB. And in 2020, there were three priority directions. So this is the protection of water resources. When we talk about management of waste, and we know that everything revolves around water. What I want to show is that if you start composting at the field which is covered, I mean, if there is a roof over it, then when you talk about water resources and water drop, when you talk about the level of moisture which can enter soil waters, it is not going to end up there because composting is going to use all this water potential. Because some people will say, you know, we have some examples when we have some polluters and they can use 100% of the water that they use, and here I'm talking about 100% of this water for to make compost, and it does not affect soil at all. And it's not here, we are not talking about Europe, about some other areas. I'm talking about Ukraine specifically. Yes, can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. Everything is okay. So here I'm talking about Ukraine, how it works here. And also I wanted to underline that today composting, it is even in Eurostat documents. It's physically there in the regulatory framework of Europe. Or, well, maybe luckily for me, there is no way for us to do without these practices. And our company supports the initiative of a sustainable business. And you know that if environment is important for you, it is also important for the way you run your business. That is why it is very important for us for you to pay attention to composting, because it really helps to retain water. It resolves many issues related to pollution of water, and eventually we will see very many benefits, both economic and environmental. Thank you for your attention. If there are any questions, if the agenda allows for the questions, then I could also give answers to your questions.
Thank you very much for this interesting presentation. And I think the colleagues, the participants of the conference may have many questions, but unfortunately not now. I think we could forward them later. And now I would like to pass the floor to our next lecturer, Olga Ignatenko, who will present to us the nature-based solutions in agriculture. Dr. Olga Ignatenko.
Thank you. I'm not sure
I'm the doctor of the
sciences, but it's
technical
not really that
sciences,
important.
just in case. But it's not the most important thing. I will try to share my screen now.
Good afternoon. I will be speaking in Russian because that's the way it's been, but I would like to say thank you to Sergei because he has created a wonderful intro, a wonderful lead into my presentation, and I will be actually referring back to the previous presentation because it works well there.
So the nature-based solutions as the path to the sustainable agriculture. This is the new concept, actually. And as Sergei mentioned, it is very popular, and they are trying to actively incorporate this into the future models of agriculture for certain reasons. First of all, we should ask the question, why do we need to change anything in the existing agriculture models? But also, as Sergei previously said, there are major issues and challenges that we are facing. This is the water pollution, the greenhouse gas emissions, the fragmentation of ecosystems, and first of all, we have the burning need, the economic need with many farmers to change things because pollution is getting increasingly more costly because the scale of the problem increases. We have the soil degradation, and therefore the existing model doesn't give the results that we had several years ago, and farmers need to invest many more resources like the mineral fertilizers, etc., and it actually impacts the results that they get, and the resources are getting more expensive because of the climate crisis. The resources are getting more expensive generally, and the cost goes up. So the previous models, they don't work or work inefficiently, so we need to understand that it's time to shift to new models, some types of new models. Yes, indeed, in the EU, the law, the legal framework already included the support of the new models and the nature-based solutions. So what are the nature-based solutions about? These are the solutions in agriculture for producers that help resolve and tackle the available challenges based on the functions of the ecosystem, such as composting. This is one of the nature-based solutions because it's based on the principles of the ecosystem functioning, and therefore it could work very well. Additionally, it also reduces the burden of the environment because it reduces the soil degradation, erosion, and water pollution. This is the classic nature-based solutions that works very well in agriculture specifically. However, in general, the nature-based solutions are based on the agroecological approach in farming, in agriculture. When you grow the agricultural cultures and consider it as the ecosystem in itself. And the methods that are now already available, there are many different available methods. They are not new that the scientists theoretically invented. These are the methods that have been known for quite a long time, also in the traditional farming, and many of them are very successful, such as the methods that are used in permaculture, in organic farming and arable farming, in the biodynamic, in the regenerative, in the carbon-based agriculture and farming, and the list is long, could be extended because there are many methods. But additionally, these solutions also help reduce the burden on the environment. For example, when we talk about the precision farming, then we know specifically which precise amounts of fertilizer shall be used, but also it includes the things that are used in terms of the renewable resources like the wind energy, etc., but they are not the function of the ecosystem. So the solar power stations is not about that. So how does it look actually? The theory is great. There are many methods. I even have the pictures, the illustrations, the images. There are many methods. We know them, and our ancestors were using many methods like these, and they had to survive somehow in agriculture, adapting their methods of agriculture and farming to try to make the best use of the available ecosystems. For thousands of years, they were improving these skills. For example, agroforestry. That's the great example that we can consider later. When the trees are integrated into the agricultural um, practices for specific cultures, or growing the gardens, for example, combined with cattle breeding, or the no-till technology that seem to be very easy to consider and very simple things, but they yield huge positive effects. They improve the soil quality and the yield generally, and the quality characteristics of the products improve, and this helps to reduce the need for the major volumes of the chemical fertilizers, etc. And there are many other methods. I actually included these three dots as one of the entry. This is not a mistake, but this is to indicate that the list is not exhaustive. Now let's take a look how it actually looks like. For example, agroforestry. I also have the pictures to illustrate. By the way, this is the method that was developed for thousands of years. It's an old method, but also allows to have a more intense farming yield. And this is the integration of trees and bushes into the grain crop farming or cattle breeding. The beauty and the miracle of this method is that the trees would allow the farmer to diversify their income. For example, when you fail with the specific tree cultures like walnut maybe, or fruit trees or olive trees, it depends on the territory and the needs of farmers, of course. But if you fail with them, if there is no crop, or for example, if you fail with the grain crops that you do, you will have the additional revenues from these trees. The very simple example that we know for Ukraine specifically, these are the forest bands that you use, and they try to use these segments, portions of forest to include the forest ecosystem, but you can use other trees, of course. But what are the major benefits of this method? First of all, it's to diversify your revenues. It's a good economic tool for a farmer. On the other hand, these tree plantings, they protect your soil, your crops, the animals, if you do the animal breeding, from the precipitation, from excessive rain. So this reduces the water erosion in the soil. It protects you from the wind, from dust, from noise, odors. If you have the animals, well, the trees can also help detain the odors. So it's just a different ecosystem that is produced, and it's altered. It also works very well for improving the soil quality because the trees help reduce the wind and water erosion, and the quality of soil improves. Also, you can use these sections of land as pastures for the animals. This is also to improve the diversification of your income. But also, when we talk about the reduced need of agrochemical fertilizers, that's another benefit. But the physical barriers of trees also help protect the animals. It's just a physical barrier against the pests. It's easier to control the pests proliferation. You don't even need to use that much of pesticides to control your crops. And also, the water is better retained by the soil, and uh, drought resilience improves. I have another example. That's the actual case that was taken from the Deutsche Welle report about the actual farmer, real life. And he actually incorporated agroforestry into his farming. Every 15 to 20 meters, he planted the poplar strips. Why poplar? Because it's fast growing. And in Europe, the agriculture is subsidized, gets the support, and they get reimbursement for carbon retention, and they're doing the measurements each year. And also, he's growing chicken, and these poplar strips are used as the free range pastures. And in between these poplar strips, he keeps growing the wheat or other grain crop, whatever he had. So he gets lots of benefits. First of all, he's getting reimbursed for retaining the carbon. Also, he doesn't need that much management of this chicken because this is free range. He just has this mobile little den that he's moving around. Also, the chicken manure helps fertilize the soil. The chicken are much healthier. They don't need to use antibiotics. And also, as to degradation of soil, the situation has improved. Many farmers, all farmers know that this is the huge problem. So this farmer is fine, and this approach turned out to be quite a successful economic solution. Another example that I could have about this agroforestry is this no-till method. In fact, these are not the new things that are quite widely used all over the world. The point is not to interfere into the natural balance and ecosystem of the soil, and this way you reduce the impact. When you do the tilling, the huge amounts of carbon they get oxidized, and also the ecosystem is affected a lot, and the ecoflora, all of the natural processes in the soil are compromised, but also this oxidation of the carbon accumulated in the soil is happening, and the soil is getting drier, less fertile, and with the CO2 is accumulated excessively, and in the context of the global crisis, this is another bad thing. So this no-till technology is related with the use of the saturates, and this technology is very simple to use. So basically, you keep the biomass on the field, and then you use the direct seeding for the next cultures. And if needed, you could introduce the mineral fertilizers additionally. That improves the quality of the soil significantly, better water retention, and actually you renew the ecosystem, the microorganisms in the soil, which improves the quality of the products eventually. There are many cases to confirm this approach in Ukraine, specifically according to the estimates of the farmers who are using this no-till technology, up to 10 to 15 percent of the land is using the no-till technology, but we don't have the more precise data. But also since the 1990s, there is the experimental farm, and they have very good results. Also, there are farmers who are doing this now, and very good conversion rates with a fast short-term effects available. Because in the first place, you reduce the amount of the fertilizers to be used, the petrochemicals, and you need less physical operations on the soil to grow certain cultures. Also, in Ukraine, it's quite a popular technology because in the steep climate, which is rather dry, it improves the water retention and improves the yield. And in the 2020, it was quite a dry year, but still this technology helped to get the sustainable yields. Another example is about using the
Дикорос, полос дикоросов, покрывных культур, как, например, это было сделано в Испании. Пример с выращиванием оливковых деревьев и продажей оливкового масла. Там огромные в провинции Хайан, огромная плантация оливковых деревьев, и традиционное выращивание – это деревья есть, а под деревьями ничего нет. То есть ни травинки, ни цветочка, все засыпано, все распахано, все уничтожено, потому что будет мешать выращивать оливковое дерево. Естественно, десятилетия таких практик привели к тому, что жесточайшая эрозия грунта, ветровая в том числе и водная, при выпадании осадков грунт не удерживает воду вообще, просто сносит часть плодородного грунта. В общем, проблемы были огромные, плюс при падении цены на оливковое масло, обычно выращено обычным способом, неорганическим, скажем так, там есть разница, просто стало нерентабельно местным фермерам.
Therefore, and it stopped being really profitable and economically profitable to find the solutions. And there were clear economic reasons that they needed to consider to change things. They had the experiments with the local agricultural university. They just planted the local plants, like the cover crops. Also, they had some maybe drinking bowls for the birds. And in some 2 or 3 years, the results turned out to be very impressive. These are very simple to use methods, and they reduced the use of pesticides. They increased the biodiversity. The bees, the birds joined. Also, the birds of prey joined actually in the ecosystem itself developed. As Paco Montabis, one of the farmers who participated there, he said, well, my great grandfather used to do it this way when we didn't have the tractor and when didn't have the irrigation systems. That's right. And the results were great. The scheme worked so well because they managed to stop using the pesticides and they managed to certify and register their olive oil as more eco-friendly, and also they could sell it more expensive, and 600 local farmers got interested. Well, we are suffering the losses and you're doing well, how come? It's an easy method with very good results.
One more example related to the use of landscape diversity of vineyards and the growing of grapes, because usually grapes are grown in drought-prone areas, and with climate change, these areas are getting drier and drier, and a lot of wine producers and grape growers use landscape biodiversity, and they also use vineyards for crop farming, because in the past you had vineyards and you had land and you didn't really use it for anything, and of course you had the irrigation systems in place, but irrigation systems are getting more and more expensive. If there is soil degradation, there is no moisture retention, and as a result the quality of grapes is poor. Torres, they have a lot of vineyards in Catalonia, and there are a lot of vineyards in Chile. They don't really use irrigation systems anymore where it's possible. They minimize the use of irrigation. They shifted to a no-till system because it doesn't really make sense. And this way they reduce CO2 emissions, convert it to wine bottles, and their plan is to reduce CO2 emissions even further by 2040. At the same time, grape growing turned into this experiment of what else you can take from the nature. So they tried to grow as fast as possible for the grapes not to dry out. And now they use some other crops. And since moisture is retained, they try to shade vines, because this way they can achieve a better yield, and it works really well. And you can see one example of such a vineyard, and it started as a very small company, but now they grew into one of the largest exporters. In particular, they export to Great Britain for the royal family. It's profitable for them. It promotes the wine culture, and through the use of landscape diversity, they can reduce the amount of chemicals used and washed out later. So this way, vineyards are more like oases for nature, and not these infinite strips and rows of single crops. And the last example, the example of polyculture farming, a very simple approach as well. There are different methods that you can use. If you have single crop or monoculture farming, it's a favorable environment for pests, and you don't really have any biodiversity there because only one crop is grown, and so you don't really have a good impact on the part of the nature. If you diversify the number of crops grown, then you can increase the yield, you can increase increase the performance, you can diversify the ecosystem, you can reduce the spread of pests because different crops serve as a natural barrier for pests. And through polyculture farming, you can get a number of other benefits. If you use a mixed farming system, when 2 or 3 crops are grown at the same time in one field, they are just seeded as a mix. And you don't really need to have a crop rotation because the soil has everything that you need and the crops receive from the soil everything that they need. Some people might think that it's nonsense, that it will never work, that we will have a smaller yield of all the crops, but in fact, it's not true. Such systems have been in use for a long time. Especially in conventional farming in Africa, when 3 crops are grown at the same time. And since crops are located on different levels or tiers in space, above the ground, underground, so you can grow more. You have shaded areas, you reduce soil drying, you reduce soil erosion, and it's the opposite. You will achieve a higher yield. I mean, the cumulative yield will be higher in comparison with having single crops in different fields. So once again, let me reiterate that this practice has been prevalent and actively used for different crops. It's a very interesting approach indeed. But if you want to transition to this type of farming, you need to possess special expertise, and you need to understand that the grown grain has to be distributed, or you need to have consumers that will not really care about the purity of your grain. For example, they produce a mixed grain bread or something like that. But you can do it in a different way as well. You can grow in strips when you have different crops rotating in strips in the same field, or you can also have strips of flowers or some other plants in between the main crops. You can see some photographs on the slide and they illustrate what I'm talking about. Why do we need to have strips of flowers and wild plants? Because they serve as natural barriers to the spread of pests. You can cover the soil, you can enhance water retention, and of course it's to the benefit of the soil, and you create these small islands for biodiversity and for insects pollinators that play an important role in farming and agriculture. So very simple techniques. They don't really require large costs, but they can produce a very good effect. And most importantly, by using these nature-based solutions, you will reduce the need for mineral fertilizers, pesticides, etc. Let me sum up my presentation. This is my favorite picture on the slide, and it demonstrates the difference between the use of conventional solutions in agriculture and regenerative agricultural solutions. And the focus of regenerative agriculture is on improving the soil quality. So I have the same field, there's a fence. On the left, you can see conventional methods, dry season, conventional crops, nothing is growing there, the soil is in very poor shape. And on the right, you can see regenerative techniques, no-till, most likely. You can see that this field is prospering, everything is green, it's lavish. So this is the drastic difference that we can have between conventional and regenerative approaches. But as a whole, you need to understand that there are no one-size-fits-all approaches. I've illustrated some examples, but it doesn't really mean that these examples will work for you. You need to pick what will work for you. It depends on the resources that you have, on the problems that you want to resolve, and then you will be able to understand what will fit your purposes. But once again, these techniques and solutions are quite simple. You can have strips of wild plants or flowers for insects and pollinators between the main crops. This is something that is easy in terms of implementation, doesn't really require any special expertise, and it's a very low cost or even no cost solution. Many solutions and methods are complex and they require more costs and more thorough planning. But a lot of these nature-based solutions are accessible for most farmers and they can ensure a high economic effect. But it's up to you to decide what will work for you specifically. Thank you very much, Olha. Thank you for this instructive and comprehensive presentation. As a comment, I would like to add that this is something that we have already discussed with Natalia, and I'm sure that our Belarusian colleagues will support us as well. we believe that it would be useful for all of us to have some sort of catalog of agricultural methods and practices. And we intend to start working on this catalog next year. There are a lot of samples of such catalogs at European level, but we would like to make it tailor-made to our setting, to our circumstances. And of course, we want to have it translated into the relevant languages. And we want this catalog to be as illustrative as possible, because very often such catalogs include voluminous text, but we want to have pictures and illustrations there. So thank you very much again for your presentation. I said we're going to have some presentations from the participants of the competition, Eco-Friendly Farmer of the Year in Belarus and Ukraine. And we will start with a presentation of the winner in Belarus in 2021. And it's a great pleasure of mine to give the floor to Dmitry Krylov. He represents the farming household duck. Dmitry, you are here, right? At least I can see you. Can you hear me? Yes. Great. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you for this honor to speak in front of this large group of people at this conference. For our farm, it came as a surprise that we won the competition. The attempt to participate in this competition was quite spontaneous. The organizers of the environmental movement in Belarus invited us to participate, and they encouraged us to demonstrate our achievements and accomplishments. And we are really happy that we were acknowledged, that our high performance was appreciated. What can I tell you about our farm and how we achieved such results? Our farm is 30 in the past 18 years. So we've been breeding goats. We've been producing yogurts, cheeses. We sell all these products in stores, and year in, year out, we are growing. 10 years ago, our Swedish colleagues on eco-friendly farming invited us to have a look at eco-friendly farming. And thanks to the GERAS project in Sweden, we had a site visit to multiple farms. And during several weeks, we had a look at their logistics, the growing process, the sale of eco-friendly products. We were really impressed after the site visits. And when we were back home, we thought that it should not be that challenging for us to replicate some of these practices, because everything that we grow in our land is used as feed for animals and livestock. So we decided to say no to the use of pesticides and non-organic fertilizers. And we shifted to these eco-friendly technologies. Olha Ignatenko shared the experience of some farming households and how it changes their performance. And this is something that we noticed in the third year. We had mice and birds of prey, and the natural life transformed completely around our fields. Our land is located on the boundary of some other households. We also have a forest on one of the sides. So we could see the ecosystem restoring and regenerating, and some of the effects were even unexpected. From an economic perspective, we haven't really noticed that much effect because our key product is milk. Some of the fodder has to be purchased externally because our own lands do not suffice. But there's another effect, and it's a new trend that we can observe It's started being implemented 8 years ago in Belarus. And 5 years ago, it became quite prevalent. I mean, the production of eco-friendly products. And back then, we had the full right to position ourselves as an eco-friendly farm because we didn't use pesticides and mineral fertilizers. It had a positive impact on our marketing. It was much easier for us to sell our products. And there's another important aspect that came into play, and I believe it had an influence on our victory within the competition. I mean, composting. We are engaged in livestock farming. We produce a lot of manure. And we also use it as fertilizer. In this process is accompanied by multiple flies and other insects. And in 2017, we started designing our new facility. And we decided to start processing this manure. A biogas power station is the first thing that came to our mind. We had a look at the supply out there, and it turned out that the solution was costly and that the payback period would be too long. And back then, we didn't really have required funds. Then a different interesting idea emerged. So you can use this manure, you make it even more moisturized, and you compost it, you heat it using natural means, and you supply it with air. And in 8 or 9 days, you get biofertilizers, compost that you can use and inputs in the fields. And this way, we were able to generate additional revenues. We are still trying to fine tune this technology, but it's already working, and we can see that it's quite successful. We package this compost in bags of 20, 30 kilos for gardens and orchards and vegetable growers. And we also use this recycled material for our own fields. We collected manure, we got rid of flies and other insects, and there were multiple other positive effects. I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers. I would like to say a big thank you to the organizers of this conference. Thank you very much for promoting the eco-friendly approach to agriculture. And right now, we can see an increasing demand for eco-friendly products and lean production in general. For me personally, there are two things that stand out here. We have high quality products that we can sell, and secondary, we can also take care of our environment, because this intensive farming is a disaster for our nature. Briefly, that's it on my part. Thank you very much. I want to wish all the best and all sorts of successes to the participants of the conference. Thank you very much, Dmitry. Colleagues from Belarus wrote that unfortunately the second winner cannot make his presentation right now because he hasn't been able to make it to the venue in Minsk right now. So at this, I want to give the floor to Natalia, and she will present and introduce the winners of this competition in Ukraine, Stary Poretsk. And there's also a winner of the national stage of the competition, Yakbjola.
Thank you, Mikhailo. And I'm hopeful that we have Valentin here with us, who is the owner of Stary Poretsk. enterprise, and I already mentioned that they are the winners of the Nationals Award 2020. These are the nominees for the Baltic Sea Farmer of the Year Award.
Valentin, can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. Natalia, shall I do it in Russian because we have colleagues from Belarus and so on?
Well, can you hear me? Welcome to everyone. Can you hear me well? Thank you, Natalia, for this introduction of our company. Our company has operated since 2010. We started with organic technologies right away, and in 2012, we received the International Organic Production Certificate, and then later with a Swiss certificate. It's a little bit different from the regular EU certificate. You probably have spotted in the video the big lake, and there is the Luga River flowing in and out, and it's joined with the Western Bug and the Wisla, and right up to the Baltic Sea. So we could say that our 950 hectares of organic lands are not polluting this water basin. We have the milk farming. We have up to 800 cows. We are only using our own self-sufficient forage basis. We also are processing all of the milk we produce. That implies that we control our products from farm to table. So this is the basis of our business. In addition, we are composting all of the manure that we produce. This year, we started cooperating with Sergei Prokopenko, which company was presented in the beginning of this event. And it also helped us save the resources such as diesel, because we used to transport all of this organic manure to the fields, like 10,000 tons a year. Now we are only transporting 3,000 to 4,000 tons of compost. Also, we are working according to the method and technology described by Ovsinsky, the Ukrainian researcher who described this technology like 100 years ago. We are only using the cultivating machine. We're not using the plowing machine. We are also using many of the seedlings, also the seeding crops. We also have the large-scale apiary. So this is the ecosystem, like the autonomous ecosystem that we have with this bee yard, including, and this no-till technology that we use. Also, my colleagues shared a similar thing. In 2010, when we bought this farm and we tried to introduce the organic methods, we got many uh, birds of prey and the rodents and the pests, and that helped regenerate and renew the ecosystem. It just got to be different than before. This year, we started using, planting the strips, the tree strips, like the defensive tree strips, and this is the fast growing tree, and we are going to see what comes out of that. So basically, this is the milk farming and cattle breeding, and we are using the organic technology only. We are very happy that we were able to participate in this project, in this competition, and we learned so many things. I think if we can get all of the presentations that were presented today, I'm sure we will have many new contacts. I'm really interested to learn more about the colleagues from the Belarus and their experience and the synergy. It's another effect and the outcome of this project, which I believe our farm would also benefit from. Thank you, Valentina. I can see also the Oscar award over there on your shelf. So I'm sure you're going to get many more awards in the future. I'm just speaking from home. It's my daughter's awards or whatever. Congratulations again. Thank you to Natalia for encouraging and supporting us in participating in this competition.
Thank you, Valentin. It was a pleasure that you were able to join us today and that we were able to learn about your enterprise. We hope we will visit you on numerous occasions in the future. And this enterprise is truly an exemplary enterprise, and we brought multiple visitors. We came to visit you with our German project and within the frame of other projects as well. And I would like to say that after the introduction of this project, Mikhail, this will be important for you to know that a friendship has been forged between the farmers that got to meet one another, that went to Warsaw together in 2013, for instance, for the award-winning ceremony. And a friendship has been forged, and now they are in touch and they come and see one another, do experience sharing. So it's a pleasure for me that this produced such symbiosis. And we would also like to speak today about national winners. So I would like to introduce our national winner of 2021, who is Oleg Bachensky. His team, Like a Bee, is the winner of 2021. Oleg, are you with us? Yes, I'm here. Natalia, yes, I'm here. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you well. So I will share your presentation, or do you want to do it on your own? I guess I will do it on my own.
Видно
Can
презентацію?
you see it? Can you see my presentation?
Всім доброго дня.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to see all of you. My name is Oleg Bachensky, a production cooperative Like a Bee. This year, owing to Ecoterra Company and Clean Baltic Coalition, we were able to gain access to a grant in the sum of €1,000, and we are very grateful for that. This, I think, is a great sign of support towards the fact that what we do is meaningful. So thank you once again. So who are we then? There are three founders, Taras, Vasil, and myself. The three of us created this cooperative where we pulled 300 people together, the members of cooperative and the investors. Owing to their contributions and based on our efforts, we were able to create this enterprise, this environmentally friendly enterprise. We have organic standard certificate in place. We produce berries, we grow berries in order to be able to earn money with the berries, and also the members of cooperative, the 300 persons, also can partake in the field of agriculture, organic agriculture, and they have an opportunity to have direct access to high quality berries, organic berries. And additionally, this yields extra profits. Within our cooperative, of course, it's less so in winter, but during the high season, we employ up to 50 people. So this allows to produce a social impact in the village, since our villages are known to be in decay, but with our neighboring village, there's no decay, and also adjacent villages also seek jobs within our cooperatives. This year, we also tried to tackle a different direction. We started the drying procedures. So this is drying of berries that are in stock. And in order to arrange for the efficiency of this drying equipment, we also have up to 100 contractors. So neighboring villages and districts have an opportunity to harvest wild plants and let us know. And based on this harvest, we create batches, we dry them and sell them. One southern tourists learned from us about what organic farming is. So this is very basic, but I will be able to tell you more about our educational campaign. So we have 100 hectares of berry cultures. So not all 100 hectares are under crops. For now, only around 40 hectares are under crops. The rest was being prepared. The fields were being prepared. To some extent, some patches were not ready. So we were doing the preparatory works, and starting next year, we will do the planting. So what is it that we plant? We plant berries such as all kinds of berries like alpine strawberry, raspberry, garden strawberry, wild strawberry, elderberry. And for now, that's all the crops that we use. This year, we focused on elderberry. Since long, this crop has been flourishing in our territories, and my grandma used to make a cough syrup based on the elderberry. As I mentioned, we have drying equipment in place, so we dry the elderberry there. We also provide for the opportunity for the local population to harvest elderberry, which is quite widespread in the region, so we also dry it and sell it. Development of agricultural tourism. Here, I would like to dive into detail a little bit more. Since we're based on organic farming, and as the representatives of this field, we have certain problems that we face in Ukraine, not only about growing, but also problems about selling our produce, because organics is not meant for poor people. It's the sales of organic products is not really customary in the society as yet, and it's difficult for people to understand why these products that look the same or even worse than the regular products, and at the same time the prices are higher. So therefore, we are more oriented towards foreign markets, but through agricultural tourism and other approaches, we try to cultivate the consciousness, the awareness of consumption of organic produce, and we try to target the youth first and foremost. And We therefore invest a lot into this field in Ukraine. What does this mean? We invest both time and efforts. It's not so much about money, but it's about time and efforts. So apart from doing all the things that we do in the field, we also spend a lot of efforts and time on educational campaigns. So here's the picture of our dried produce harvested this year, and later I will share with you a link to Telegram channel and Telegram bot that will offer you an opportunity to order our dried produce. We have vitamin sets and health benefit sets, because all of these sets are high in vitamins. So coming back to tourism, using tourism, we want to share and to cultivate the awareness of organic products consumption. Over the years that we've been doing it, we have tested several approaches, several options. We have organized festivals, holidays, but finally we have decided to focus, and we saw it as the most efficient, and emotionally it was the most relevant for us, and it also the most efficient, and at least we can cover our expenses. So this approach consists in hosting school trips. This year we have hosted a lot of groups of school children. We meet them in the fields. We tell them about organic farming, about agriculture. First and foremost, most of these children come from big towns. They don't know how plants grow. We tell them and we show them, and we explain to them the difference between organic farming and conventional farming, so that they can see it, distinguish between it, and be aware of it in the future. And here in the first photograph, you can see this vehicle behind us. It's meant to transport hay, but we have refurbished it and we transport children in it. The children sit on the hay and we do a trip for them. Children enjoy it a lot, and adults do as well, actually. So what else that is it that we do? Early spring, there's a forest nearby, and there are a lot of early flowers, and we have created a stand for the plants that belong to the Red Book, endangered species of plants. And every year we have this festival of early flowers, snowdrops, and children can come and they take pictures. They can also have a picnic. There are tables available. We also have a kitchenette, and it's a good opportunity to spend time together. So this snowdrop festival is quite popular. We arrange for music. We invite groups and bands. This year we also celebrated the Teachers' Day. So this year we hosted the teachers from the Environmental Educational Center for Kids. We hosted around 30 children. They all came to see our fields. They planted different kinds of crops, plants. So we both played and worked and celebrated the Teachers' Day in an environmental way. So on St. Mary's Day, which is also a day of Ukrainian army, we invited the children from orphanages, the children that perhaps don't have much access to similar kind of pastime activities. So we invited them. We did a trip, a tour for them, and after we had a small party and we treated them to different treats. So these are the children that are a bit underprivileged, and we try to communicate our value and our emotions to them. So Vasil in the middle here, he's also a graduate of an orphanage, and now he's a founder of this plantation like a bee. So I talked about tourism. So we also participated in Good Better Organic project. Natalia Chilovska organized it, where the students of agrarian universities from Ukraine and from Germany came to visit us and to see our fields. And we also had an opportunity to share our experience in terms of growing organic produce and the advantages and disadvantages. So we think it's very important to share also the disadvantages, because they show the reality of the situation, but also advantages are important. So we are open to this, and we invite the students and the organizations, and we are eager to share all the information that we have in order to communicate this organic and environmental agenda and the quality and the benefits that it brings to our health.
I also want to express my gratitude to Good Better Organic organization, because they also but I think that you mean Coalition Clean Baltic. Yes, I'm sorry, that my bad. I meant Coalition Clean Baltic because they presented to us with some toilets with separation. We are also grateful because these are the things that we use here in our fields. What else? The problems, I have already outlined them. And those 100 subcontractors, these are the people who also work in the same area, and this is a good opportunity for them to make some money by gathering plants, because we focus not only on growing, on sharing some information about agricultural terms, but also we focus on drying of our products. And we also try to engage representatives of local communities, because that is an opportunity for them also to gather plants and actually to make some money. It's important that it's organic, and we have this motto that we work like a bee for other people to make money with us. I think it's a pragmatic approach, but it really helps us to develop faster in terms of our ideas and our business. And if you show that organic products and such an attitude that we demonstrate the environment is economically effective, then I think that that's going to be a good thing as well. What else? Well, before I finish, just something to add here. Apart from 300 members of our cooperative, those people who joined us, we are also a member of all of Ukrainian Farmer Congress of Ukraine. There are 700 farmers from different regions of Ukraine. So this is an organization which helps to resolve different issues, in particular those pertaining to the organic sector, and also they share their experience. So we try to communicate this idea to the farmers, because mostly we talk about commercial growing. We don't really want to convince people that organic farming is exactly what they need, but we try to communicate the idea that organic agents for protection. That is something which has to be introduced in their farming, and that is also a good opportunity for them to have this added value and added effect for their business, because it does not happen overnight, of course, but this is another aspect of our activity. That is everything that I wanted to share about us. Then I will also share the information about our Facebook account. There you can find even more information, and also there is a link to the Congress of Ukrainian Farmers and my personal contacts and Vibrobot. You can also order our products, I mean dried products, and when the season is high, then we can also have some fresh berries. Then I want to give the floor to Mikhailo.
Thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Oleg. Now I want to give the floor to Vitaly Bilookov. He's the winner of the Eco-Friendly Farmer of the Year in Belarus 2019. He represents the Healthy Countries Здоровая страна company. Good morning, dear colleagues. In 2019, we became the winners. I represent the Healthy Country company. I'm the director of this company. And I'm very grateful to our staff. We have 262 hectares of land. And we have professionals within our company. They have required expertise to grow organic products. We grow berries in the first place. We are also engaged in orchards, and we are entertaining the idea of doing livestock farming as well, but that will be the next steps. We have a national certificate, one crop at this point, but in the future, we intend to have other crops certified as well. Since 2016, we've been actively engaged in the certification process. And I would like to share some of our observations, in particular, in terms of the development of biodiversity. A lot has been mentioned about that, biota, soil, perennial crops. It's one thing to grow cereals, and it's something different to have an apple orchard or bushes or blackberry. We have some bad experience, for example, when you try to grow blackcurrant and it's not really working, and then you have to root everything out. You need to have a different crop rotation. You need to have a completely different approach to the soil. So we realized that, first of all, we had to sort out the issue of soil. For perennial crops, it's not enough to do it just for 1 year, because such crops require a completely different approach. And we can see the development of biota in terms of pests, in terms of insects. There's a need for better regulation. This year has been quite challenging for all of us, because in our region, there's been a lot of precipitation and rainfall. And we observed some other farmers that engage in conventional farming. And we can see that some pests are prevalent in our region. They have some different kinds of pests. And if we have a look at garden strawberry, then this plant is more resilient. And some of these berries are very resilient even without chemical inputs. As for the yield is not that much lower in comparison with other farmers and producers of similar grains and berries. From an economic perspective, our area of agriculture is based on perennial crops. It's too early to make some conclusions, because we have a young cherry tree orchard, for example. In terms of strawberries, there are some economic challenges and difficulties. A lot of people say that it's tough with organic farming, that it's better to do conventional farming, because then you can be more successful, you can sell more. But I would like to share my personal observations. If we have a look at our experience, then our failures were more related to personal mistakes than to organic or non-organic farming. But we can see that the interest is there, in particular in Grodno. A certain level of trust is there, but the final decisive factor is the price anyway. If the price variance is 10–15%, then it's not that problematic. But not only are our strawberries organic, but they also comply with the certain quality standards and packaging standards. And of course, the taste is of importance for people. Like we had this case with raspberries, because it's not only about products being organic, but durable at the same time. So we have a litany of problems that we have to attend to. I guess that's it briefly on my part. Should you have any questions, I will be more than happy to take them. I would like to share one more experience. We also have self-collection. By that, I mean that we invited people to come and collect strawberries. So out of 15 hectares, we allocated 3 hectares for self-collection. We are located at a distance of 30 kilometers from the Volkovysk town. And people called us. There was an avid interest. A lot of people would even come to us themselves. And we had an animated discussion with people. People could see firsthand the conditions that we have for growing different berries. So that was a very positive experience indeed. And we also have a large plantation of some other crops. So sometimes we didn't really have enough time to collect all the yield ourselves, and we involved people into this process. Should you have any questions, once again, I will be more than happy to take them. Thank you, Vitaly.
I believe it's time we wind up with the discussion.